And I did it via the Edgar Casey method of like, I want to know who my spirit guides are, in like order of dominance. I put it under my pillow. Well, I didn't learn who they were through my dream space, but through these meditations that I would do, the astral travels. At the very end of my travel in the meditation, I could feel all of this energy in the space. And I knew it was like, it felt like people sitting around me. Like it was like that. And then when I woke up, I jot down like basically my spirit team, like not even thinking I was doing it, just automatic writing. I had at the very top, which was the first thing I actually drew, was a triangle with the eye in it. And it was like Mother Mary and the Dark Mothers, and it was Kali, Hecate, and Lilith. And I mean, I had a kind of a connection with Kali. Lilith kind of was new, and Hecate, like I said, I didn't really like have a direct connection with her, but I was always curious. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And in that period of time, just for a very short window, when I would meditate in those type of ways, she would come to me kind of at the end of the meditation. And like the first time she did literally scared the shit out of me. Like it jolted me out of the meditation because it was like she was right here. The energy of it reminded me of this tarot card. It's like a woman screaming in this deck.
Hmm.
And like for me, what she always represented was like facing your fears. Welcome to Journey Through the Universe. Hi, Alexis. How are you doing tonight?
Hello, I am doing pretty good post Aquarius full moon.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely felt that energy strong.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, now that we're in the shadow of that, I'm feeling still kind of weird, but overall pretty good. How are
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I definitely the Aquarius moon for me was pretty chill. I mean, I had some intense moments, but nothing like crazy. Um, and I felt like a little bit of it today, like the lingering effects. But overall, I feel okay. I've had a lot of revision and reflection around like my creative endeavors,
Mhm.
consolidating everything. And yeah, just like moving forward, I feel that I'm starting to really just kind of bridge all of my disciplines together, or my focuses, yeah, foci. I don't know. Anyway, bring it all together, because for a very long time I've been feeling like here's my dream work, here's the astrology, here's the metaphysics, here's like the spiritual stuff, and it's like I feel so scattered, and I don't know what it is about this particular like Aquarius energy. And I think maybe I kind of know what it is, but I'm not going to get into details about my astrology. But anyway, it's like I'm finally like slowing down enough to I'm finally like doing the things that I would argue kind of matter, because I
Yeah.
distract, like I caught myself today where I was like, okay, I need to just take these notes and start getting organized of how I want things to be laid out or how it's integrating. And for some reason I was having a little bit resistance, and I was about to get up and do something else like clean this office, which is also on my list, but then I was like, no. I gave myself like, I was like, for an hour, you're gonna do this.
Yeah.
And so it's like doing, like, I'm like, yeah, just doing those, because when I do kind of deflect and do something else, then I beat myself up about it, and I like have those intense emotions about it, or spiral into anxiety. And so
Yep.
I think that's like, I felt myself many times in this window of like the Aquarius full moon. I felt myself like in those spaces, and I quickly just like was able to pull myself out of it before it got really bad. So I think that's why it was kind of a stable experience for me. It's interesting though that the nodes are now in Aquarius and Leo. So that's kind of a big deal, especially for you and I, because that is in our home, in our like career purpose, like our most private parts of our life, and then the most visible part of our life are going through these, like are about to go through accelerated change and deep transformation. And so I'm really kind of curious. I'm gonna say excited to see how that unfolds over the next year and a half.
No, I 100% agree with you. I'm kind of excited as well. Especially because what I experienced with this Aquarius new or Aquarius full moon was also that creative, that like harnessing in on the creativity and kind of being a little more disciplined with it. And so for me, I decided last minute to participate in a art trading card thing, like some community-based art trading card. And so I had to hand make 10 trading cards that were a certain size, put my information on the back and everything, and that I hyper focused, locked in. And I haven't locked in on doing art in a while like that, mostly because of just everything that life throws at us. Being creative is a spontaneous, intuitive experience. Like you really can't force yourself to do it. And if you can force yourself to do it, all credit to you, but I can't force myself to do it. So it was really beautiful to like kind of hone in on that creative energy and let some things flow outside from inside of my head, my mind, and my imagination out and materialize it. Because that in itself is magic. Um, and I completely understand just the organization of like your spirituality and kind of harnessing in on that too. I mean, I feel like this was a really potent full moon, probably for us specifically because of the Aquarius
Mhm.
energy that we have in our chart being so, you know, to the forefront of things. But I am very excited to see where the nodes take us over the next year, just based on what we experienced with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the eclipse season hasn't even started. So the solar eclipse, new moon in Leo is on August 12th. And also, if you're someone that connects with the aligns with the 8-8 portal, that's on August 8th. So
Yeah.
that is going to be a really powerful week, which is basically a week from by the time this episode comes out, it'll be pretty much a week from the episode because it's a week from this Saturday. So I'm actually looking forward to it. And I feel like there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of potential with this energy, especially if you're someone that has Aquarius or Leo in your chart. I'm always like a cheerleader, a encourager of like working with the energy around you, being in alignment and being very clear of your intentions and how you want to utilize the energy that's present. Because I do feel that the like these celestial alignments, I see astrology as like a clock more than anything. And so it's
Yep.
like, okay, the time is literally now. The time is
Hmm.
like 8-8, like the infinity portal or this Leo energy, this accelerated change and transformation and our like ability to creatively express ourselves, to really celebrate our authenticity, to innovate our lives, to expand, to create new communities, and all those other beautiful qualities of Leo and Aquarius. And so, like anything that you've deeply been craving, desiring, longing for within that aspect of yourself and of your life, this is the time to really just like put a lot of focus and energy. So I would definitely encourage you to look where Leo and Aquarius is in your chart, identify the area of life that it rules and any planets there, and then kind of go from there with how you want to connect with that energy. Because the more like focused and like I would say more specific you are, especially if you know your birth chart and you know the areas of life that are really going through this transition or transformation, then that makes it even more easier and more clear for you to direct your energy. So we'll probably be talking about that. I feel like we should do like an episode about that at some point. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so stay
Well,
tuned.
of course we should, because when it comes to the North Node placements or the nodes placements, um, it's really important too to acknowledge how they're going to show up in your dream space for the time period that they're in this new transit. So I absolutely agree. This should definitely be a conversation we should have soon.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. But in this episode, we are so excited that this is the second episode in our series of Dreaming with the Divine. We're going to be talking about Hecate, which is a Greek goddess associated with, we're going to share all about that. But I'm really excited to talk about Hecate. So let's get into the conversation. So, Alexis, I'm going to put you on the spot. I want to know, like, when you first came across Hecate, like, not necessarily in connection or in relation, or in communion, I guess we should say. But just like, hearing about Hecate, like, maybe seeing an image of her, like, what was your first impression of this goddess? Like, when you think about Hecate, before you even dive deep into connecting and learning about, what she corresponds to.
Right. So honestly, I don't know if I really picked up on her presence until I started really indulging in witchcraft podcasts years ago. And I wouldn't even say that I like indulged in learning about Hecate specifically, but when I would listen to these podcasts with different witches talking about their experiences, Hecate would come up in conversation. It would be pretty brief, but that's when she started showing up um, for me. I do think, and I could be wrong about this, but I do think that she actually was also briefly brought up in practical magic
Hmm. I
when
can't,
they were
yeah.
I can't I can kind of like I can kind of like visualize them when they're doing a spell, like calling in a deity, and I think it may have been Hecate. Um or Hecate, there's like I think you can pronounce it in like several different ways, kind of like Samhain. But that being said, I would say the most memorable first experiences with Hecate crossing my path is simply just hearing people talk about her on the witchy podcasts I listen to.
So what was like your feeling like when you like just thinking about when you like heard about her or just like or even now like what's your feeling about her? Like what kind of feeling does it draw out or is it like, do you feel drawn to her in a way or curious?
When I first started hearing about her, I can tell you right now, I did not give a flying fuck. And no offense to anyone or anything that involves this. Like, it's not that I thought poorly of her or whatever. I just like it was a passing thought. It wasn't something that I honed in on, like, especially because for me, so I'm not somebody who works with deities. I haven't worked with deities before, at least knowingly or intentionally. So when it came to people talking about their experiences working with deities, it wasn't something that I was like excited about or really interested in listening about. And again, it wasn't because I had any judgments or feelings about it. It just simply did not relate to me.
Mhm.
Now, however, I have been seeing her show up more frequently on the socials and in conversation, in movies, shows, whatever I'm watching. I'm seeing her show up more, and I'm starting to actually hold or at least feel more connected to her archetype. The fact that she is essentially the goddess of the liminal, like that's something that I experience. Like, when I was looking into her, I saw something around how um, she kind of was known for being like in and out of the underworld and like would interact, but then kind of go back to the other world, the other reality, and kind of moving through both. And that's kind of how I feel about myself with the dream work, like being, in the dream space and being in the waking um all the time at the same time. And so I'm starting to really relate more to her in regards to that liminality. um and crossroads. I mean, When I think about crossroads, it definitely is starting to feel more attached to like that Libra energy that I have in my chart.
Mhm.
Because crossroads, you have to make a decision, you know? You're like at a point where you need to take your life into one direction or the other. And I mean, when it comes to Libra, decisions are definitely a huge aspect. So I would say I'm definitely connecting more with her. And I did briefly discuss with you earlier today that I actually feel like I want to use her archetype in my dream space and like kind of work with her a little bit more intentionally. Um, and the way I would kind of go about that for myself is to call in my higher self to show up as the Hecate archetype because I work with my higher self the
Mhm.
most.
Mhm. Nice.
Yeah. How has she shown up for you? How do
Yeah.
you feel about her now? Where are you with this
Yeah.
deity, this
I do
goddess?
want to say that, like, one of the reasons why, or the main reason why I asked that is because I feel like I can see the archetype being a very, like, it's an alignment with you. And I didn't even think about the Libra aspect of like the crosswords, especially because Libra rules your 12th house too. And you also, don't you have, you have Mercury in Libra, and Mercury is also one of those energies that is kind of like goes back and forth between the underworld and like the earth and the higher realms. Like it's like that traveler messenger. It's able to actually, it holds that energy of three to the heavens, the earth, or like the middle plane and the underworld.
Mhm.
So very similar to Hecate, who has that threefold energy as well. Um, so that's why I was like, how did you feel? Because I felt like you would maybe be drawn to her. Um, I felt like with Hecate, um, I was always kind of curious about her. Like I don't know if I felt really drawn to her. She definitely gave me like, especially the people who are devotees of Hecate, they had this like craft type energy, like the movie Craft, where they're like super
Mhm.
witchcraft and like black lipstick, black everything, like
Mhm.
they're like they have no issues with hexing people. One of the metaphysical shops, actually, the one that I do, that I've been doing the dream classes with, the owner, which she actually transferred ownership. But anyways, she is like a Hecate devotee, and when you go into her shop, like you see it. It's like animal bones, like black everything, like all the like the employees, they're all wearing black. And I don't think it's a requirement, but I think that she just attracts in like those kind
Mhm.
of people to her space, which makes sense because they feel comfortable there versus like someone who's like love and light, like, I'm like more angelic, like they're not gonna really vibe with that space, I would say.
Mhm.
So I always thought it was really cool. I always like, I was just very curious, but I never had like a desire to work with Hecate. And um, around the time that I guess it was in 2018 when like the infamous period I always talk about when I like quit my job waiting tables and decided to like do this full time, like not well, no, it was professionally, but like really be in the experience and practice of it for myself too. I would do meditations, um, like very regularly, like deep meditations where I would lay on the floor with crystals, listen to sound bowls and Tibetan singing bowls and whatnot, and just like that's my version of astral travel, basically.
Right.
And I spoke about this before on the podcast of how I set an intention, and I did it via the Edgar Casey method of like, I want to know who my spirit guides are, in like order of dominance, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I put it under my pillow. Well, I didn't get I didn't learn who they were through my dream space, but through these meditations that I would do, the astral travels. And so when I came out, like at the very end of my travel and the meditation, I could feel all of this energy in the space. And I knew it was like, it felt like people sitting around me. Like it was like that. And then when I woke up, I jot down like basically my spirit team, like not even thinking I was doing it, just automatic writing. And um another surprise was like, so there was the list of archetypes, deities, whatever, ascended masters. Then I had at the very top, which was the first thing I actually drew, was a triangle with the eye in it. And it was like Mother Mary and the Dark Mothers, and it was Kali, Hecate, and Lilith. And I mean, I had a kind of a connection with Kali. Lilith kind of was new, and Hecate, like I said, I didn't really like have a direct connection with her, but I was always curious. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And in that period of time, just for a very short window, when I would meditate in those type of ways, she would come to me kind of at the end of the meditation. And like the first time she did literally scared the shit out of me. Like it jolted me out of the meditation because it was like she was right here. And the energy of it reminded me of this tarot card that I'm gonna have to get in a second. But basically, it's like a woman screaming in this
Hmm.
deck. And like for me, what she always represented was like facing your fears. So
Hmm.
every so often she would show up like after that in the sense that like I knew I was like, okay, I'm like being initiated into like facing a fear.
Yep.
And so that's essentially like I've never really intentionally worked with her. That's kind of how she showed up. There hasn't really been extended connections and relations. Um, I just like, I mean, I do have like a triple goddess little thing on my like a wooden plaque on my tree out there where it's like my goddess outside altar. So I have that and that's more so, but that's more so kind of like the mother maiden crone energy. Um,
Hmm.
but I have like it's really nice because I have two trees that are together and I don't know where I found this little gate. Maybe it was already in the backyard, but I have this gate in between the two trees. And so like on the other side of the gate is like the underworld. And so I like dump like old flowers and fruit and whatever. That's
Oh,
kind of my compost, like my decomposition stuff, whatever. So
I
like
love
seeds and stuff.
that.
Yeah. So
That
I
that is
have
the
to take a picture.
sweetest thing ever. And also goals. Like there's something so beautiful because I grew up in a household where like we always threw our leftovers in the yard for the animals to eat.
Yeah.
So like that's it feels very in like in unison with that idea, but like the extra level of mysticism, the symbolism around, having this gate to the underworld and where like dead things go, things that are in decay go. It's just such a beautiful
Yeah.
ritual. That's
Yeah.
goals.
That
That's house goals for me. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I have to show you. But yeah, so that's kind of my extent with her, but I really um I don't know. I think some people I can see some people being kind of like fearful of her. I can see her being scary to some people, but I just never got that vibe from her. Like she's
Mm,
intense, but it could be like the Scorpio energy, Pluto in the first
right.
house. And like some people are even scared of Lilith. Like they like think she's scary. And I'm just like, no, I'm not. I mean, I respect them. I
Mhm.
definitely give them respect, but I don't really fear them. Like I don't really look at them as demonic or like any kind of thing.
Right.
So
Well, I think that's something really important to acknowledge is like your fear gives power to where you put it. And like there's no reason to be so consumed with fear. Like don't give your power away.
yeah, especially
I feel like people are
you can
so
see them
quick to
as
do
such.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you put
Like,
yourself in that fearful space. If you fear them,
yeah.
you're going to get that aspect, you
And
know?
I don't see like looking at Lilith and Hecate and like deities like Hades and stuff like that. I'm not in any fear of their energy. I don't see them as like demonic, bad, evil. They serve their purpose, and I think a lot of people just don't feel comfortable in their shadow, and that's where that fear comes to the forefront. It's easier to identify something as evil instead of acknowledging it for what it is, which is an aspect of yourself that you're afraid to address, you're afraid to
Yeah.
confront. And that's something that's really important about Hecate too, is that she is also the like a goddess around shadow work.
Yeah.
Like
Big.
I don't pick up very dark energy from Hecate at all personally, but at the same time, I think I live in a space that's similar to what Hecate represents. So for me, it's not like dark and like, I don't know. Like when I think about her, I don't see it in that light, or lack thereof. But, I do think that that's again something that these types of people probably need to look further into in regards to themselves. And if you're fearful of, certain deities, you got to start acknowledging why. Like,
Yeah.
what is it about this that scares me, really?
And that's why I like these kind of like deities, or in this case the goddesses, as like Hecate and Lilith. I think that, for everyone, they have like there's deep medicine, and they are teachers, right? And they
Yeah.
are aspects of ourselves. So I love when you mention like the way I would work with her. If I choose to, I would basically call in my higher self, and like my higher self would, basically reflect to me the aspect of Hecate that I'm meant to work with, or that relates to me, basically. And that's what it really is. It's like these archetypes are essentially aspects of ourselves. There's like a collective perspective, belief, and correspondence of of each of them. But then when it comes to our own personal connection, what the heck? Okay, so I know you noticed the pause there, and if you were watching the actual video, you could see that we had a little bit of a moment. I'm gonna say that Hecate was like, "Hey, Alexis," like, "Hey, girl." I'm
Yep.
But
Yep.
in the midst of like trying to figure out what was going on, and, of course, hitting pause on the recording, we have no idea where we left off. So I hope you were able to get what you needed out of that little bit that we shared there. But we're gonna go into, at this point, just some correspondences of Hecate, like her symbols, how you can work with her within your dream space and so forth. Um, and so we already touched on how she's a goddess of the crossroads, or like the in-between worlds. She's also considered to be the keeper of keys as well, which I thought that was really interesting. I know, like, as I was like studying her correspondences a little bit more specifically, I was like, oh, she does have elements of the high priestess. And
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned that to me the other day. I think you like mentioned that
Yeah.
just briefly, and I was like, when you said it, I was like, and then when I
Yeah.
started doing my own like research, and I saw, and I just like from the correspondences, I was like, she is, and it makes so much sense. Like, yeah.
I mean, even just talking about like the key aspect, not to like cut you off there, but just real quick, in regards to like symbols, like symbolism of her showing up recently to be worked with, and me not even kind of picking up on it until now. Um, I had this key hanging in my car, and it broke off of what it was hanging from, and I just felt the need, like this intuition to just put it on a chain and wear it. And I've been wearing this now for a couple months and didn't even realize the association with that specific deity. So and I'll go more into this later, but when I did try to invoke her, I took this off my chain and put it under my pillow. So I was kind of holding space without even knowing why in
Yeah.
regards to that. So I just thought that was very auspicious, and I don't know,
No, I really
adds excitement to it.
love that. And yeah, I like that representation of the keys, unlocking the gate, and just access to like the shadow, or the unknown, is what I
Mm-hmm.
key, which also just through that process of unlocking, what's unknown, you naturally gain wisdom, therefore transformation and so forth, and deepening your connection with yourself, which I feel, like as we recently, well, a couple months ago, did a episode on tarot and the high priestess for our tarot and dream series. I really see the correlation and this connection to the underworld, to the subconscious, to the mystery, to the memories, and being able to hold space for the past, present, and future, which is also another correspondent of Hecate. Um, One of the other correspondences is the black dog. And I didn't know
Mhm.
specifically, honestly, that it was a black dog. I knew dogs in general, which because you will tend to see like statues of her with like dogs, like having a dog next to her, which I think is really cool. And like I'm thinking, like I feel like my dog connection is definitely more Egyptian, but as we'll share a little bit later in our chat, dogs definitely showed up in my dream in my act of connecting with Hecate. And so I thought that was really interesting, and I'll share why in a bit. But dogs represent or correspond to Hecate as that element of protection and guarding, as well as she is the keeper of the subconscious or the guardian of the crossroads in that gate.
Yeah, and it also makes me think of a guide dog. Like, when you're blind, you
Yeah.
use a guide dog. And that's kind of like, if you think about it metaphorically and symbolically, if you're blind to, hidden knowledge and wisdom and understanding, this deity will come through as this guide dog to push you forward down the path. So, just
Yeah.
like there's so many things that are just so exciting about this particular deity and the correspondences that go hand in hand, because you don't realize, like, until you start working, or at least even just acknowledging these deities, you don't realize the correspondences and how they show up in your life before you even acknowledge that that's what they are.
Yeah. And I'll also say that there are, like, you start to see how it's all connected. Like I was saying, oh, like I have dogs show up in my dreams a lot as of the past couple years. And I connect that to more of like Anubis in ancient Egypt. But also I'm like, oh, that's Hecate and it is the dream space. And like, so it's like you can see how, these like different symbolisms or experiences, they kind of all like blend together in some way. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
all experiencing these different elements and different like paradigms or cultures and so forth, right? It's just speaking to us in a slightly different way. So I think that's really cool too. Um,
Absolutely.
Another symbolism of hers is the torchbearer, which I see that
Mm-hmm.
as that shadow aspect, right? Like creating that light within the darkness. Like I'm just getting the visual of someone carrying a torch and just that flickering light. And I love like even like seeing people carry like a candle like through a dark
Mm-hmm.
space. And it's like creating the shadows. And there's also like this energy of not necessarily fear, but you're just like a spooky type feeling because you're like, oh, it's dark and we have this little bit of light and it can burn out. I don't know. There's just some energy around that. And so also that kind of speaks to her being the guide if she's the one with the torch, like bearing the torch, and guiding us through the liminal space or through our subconscious or through our own darkness, as I mentioned before, of like facing fears. So I love that.
Well, and just to touch on that, I think there's something really beautiful about the torch being a symbolism for her, because if she is this aspect connected to the unknown, and one of the biggest universal fears is the fear of the unknown. And when you do light a space with a torch or a candle or a lantern, you really are only given a small amount of information. So
Right.
it does leave a lot of mystery and like room for manifesting fear because you don't know. So it
Mhm.
almost is, in a way, forcing you to be in a certain amount of darkness and unknown while
Yeah.
getting little bits of information that'll nurture and fuel you rather than
Yeah.
getting the whole picture. I feel like even just how overwhelming that can be. It's like breadcrumbs to the full thing rather than the full thing.
Yeah. And there's still like, again, that kind of adds to the spookiness or the mystery where it's like, okay, we can see wherever the light touches, we can see, but there's still darkness around. And like then we
Mm-hmm.
have these shadows being created as well with the integration of the light and the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like excitement there, but then there's also like this like trepidation or just that kind of nervousness that comes along with that whole experience. And that makes sense. And that also kind of represents, our journey with our dreams, especially when you're just getting into dream work and you may be experiencing or in that phase of experiencing a lot of like, shadow type dreams or anxious dreams or anything that's intense where it's like, okay, we are making this intention and taking action to really get to know the deeper parts of ourselves, the darker parts of ourselves, which can be very scary, especially if we're not used to that and also not used to the way that our subconscious communicates with us. It could seem very scary and like just off and crazy. And so I could see that representation or that correspondence with Hecate and the torchbearer, and just even her connection to the liminal space and facing fears in the dark and the light and all of that.
Absolutely.
So another aspect that I was talking about, which I think is like a major one because it was kind of a realization for me very recently in the act of preparing for this episode. I have always looked to Hecate as like the triple moon goddess, like her being like the maiden, the mother, and the crone all in one. And as I did research, I learned that that's more of like a modern concept or correspondent to Hecate, specifically triple moon goddess, specifically mother maiden crone. So she
Right.
does have that triple association. And like you said, Alexis, it's about seeing the past, present, and future, seeing
Right.
multiple perspectives. Also, there's this element of protection or seeing beyond like normal perception, and that makes more sense. And over time, it has evolved into, like this triple moon aspect of the waxing, the full, and the waning element. But I think also what I've simultaneously known, which never like really clicked, is that in Greek mythology, which is essentially Hecate's origin, but it's also say that she might predate um, Greece, which she might predate back to Korea, I think is the right isn't the way to pronounce that, but it's basically modern day Turkey. But essentially, there's actually technically three moon goddesses or goddesses associated with the moon. That's Artemis, which is essentially the waxing moon correspondence. There is Selene, which technically is the moon goddess, but she would be the full moon goddess. And then there's Hecate, which is the waning moon and leaning more into that like waning release and darkness type
Yep.
energy. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I find that wildly interesting. And it's a really good opportunity for if you are looking to work with moon deities, to use those three. Um, I love that. I think that's beautiful. And I agree with even just like the symbolism of the waning moon with Hecate because of her association to shadow work. When we look at the new moon, that's exactly where we're looking and at the shadow. So I
Mhm.
love that. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. So what ways did you see as far as connecting with Hecate, like specifically with the dream space?
So, what I would suggest personally for working with Hecate, with the dream space is I would suggest creating a nightstand altar, a dream work altar, and having Hecate be honored in that altar. So you can create a altar with her statue. You can add pictures. You can add keys and stones that are associated with the fire element to kind of represent that torch bearer, without having like a candle because we don't want fires in the house. So I would suggest adding stones that are associated with fire rather than an actual candle. Um, you could have a black dog figurine, like, carved out of obsidian or onyx stone that represents protection and kind of having that double symbolism, to project out that power more
Mhm.
strongly. And you can also add herbs to the altar. You can add mugwort, that's often associated with Hecate, lavender, and garlic as well. Though I do have to say, I think I would be hesitant to put garlic next to my bed, being that bugs in the house do exist, like mice and other things too. Like if you kind of just have the garlic spread on in a bowl, it might draw some critters to have a tasty treat in the middle of the night. So I don't suggest that. Maybe if you had like a garlic clove in a jar or something. But even then, like garlic is so potent, I probably
I don't
would
know if I want to wake up or
avoid
sleep
that. Yeah, no.
next to the
Um,
aroma of garlic.
right, exactly, exactly. And then on top of that, I suggest creating a sigil for Hecate to call her in or creating a spell. And you can do this in a variety of different ways, really just setting that intention. So you can write it down on a piece of paper, you can burn it, you can freeze it, you can bury it, you can simply just put it in a pouch under your pillow. Um, you can create the sigil and use moon water to write your sigil on the wall. You could create a like stitch the sigil into your pillow. You can make the sigil into a piece of art and hang it from your ceiling. Um, Anything that's going to really invoke that casting energy. So you want to cast it out, you want to remember it, you want it to be, you want your attention to be on it because the more energy you put towards, honoring that deity, the more likely she's going to show up.
Yeah.
Especially like calling her in. And I also suggest a visualization meditation as you're falling asleep. So, what I would do is when you close your eyes to go to sleep, start to visualize your interpretation of Hecate and correspondences, whatever feels right to you. Let your imagination kind of take over. Maybe, if you have mugwort or lavender, you can put it in a pouch and kind of use it as aromatherapy to help with the visualization. But as you're going to sleep, just allow yourself to do some box breathing while you imagine her coming to you, whether or not that's like, say a door opening and her arriving, or her like a light in darkness. And as the light is approaching you, you start to visualize her coming through, or you visualize a dog, a black dog, or I highly suggest even telepathically communicating while you're doing this meditation, you know, um, in your head, as you're visualizing her cast your spell. I call in Hecate to help me in the dream space, to connect with me in the dream space, whatever you want to put together to call her in, do that telepathically as you're meditating into sleep. And of course, I would also suggest sleeping with cards that are associated with her. So, for example, she's associated with the High Priestess, as we mentioned. That's one of her correspondences. From what I looked up, that's a card that corresponds to her. And so that might be something you want to either put on your altar or put under your pillow or put above your bed. Or if you have other oracle decks where Hecate is one of the themes that are on one of the cards, sleep with that, put it under your pillow somewhere where it's going to be a reminder, and just kind of have presence in your nighttime routine and sleep.
Yeah. You know what I really like that stood out to me is that I didn't even think about is the mugwort. So, I'm sorry. Mugwort for me, like I used to drink it all the time. Well, not all the time, but it used to be my go-to dream tea. And over time, I never really slept. I was kind of always in the in-between.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting too that when I had that experience of Hecate coming through, or just like the awareness of her being a part of like whatever the Dark Mothers represents for me, um, I was doing the like making the mugwort dream tea. And so I thought that was really interesting and just being in that like liminal space and not being able to have that deep sleep. That I was like, oh, I didn't realize she was connected to that. And
Absolutely.
yeah, in my own experience, as far as like in preparation for this, as Alexis and I wanted to connect with Hecate in our dream space, just to see what will come through and to share with you guys for this episode, I decided to sleep with a card under my pillow, and I have two oracle decks. And this one, I don't have the deck with me. I think it's the goddess knowledge cards. But
Hmm.
anyways, this is the triple goddess. It doesn't say anything about Hecate specifically, but like I said before, I've always connected her to the triple moon goddess. And so I chose to sleep with this card specifically, or I had two options. It was one from another deck, which actually was Triple Goddess. It had the Mother Maiden Crone, but the keyword was Crossroads, and that was from another Oracle deck. And I had this card. And so I had my pendulum basically, choose for me which one wanted to sleep with me. I love saying it that way, like sleep with me. I don't know why.
Hmm.
It sounds kind of
I
funny.
know, I love it too.
But
I think it's
yeah.
exactly what is
Right. It's
happening.
what's happening. Let's go to bed together. Let's dream.
Hmm.
And so yeah, that was the chosen card. And as far as like my experience from that, like now that I'm looking at my notes of my dream, it's kind of like it's not cohesive. So I would say the major thing that stood out to me, which I thought was really interesting, and I actually didn't note here, was that the first night, because I slept with this card for 3 nights, but the first night was really only the only night that I feel that I made a connection or felt her energy present in the dream space. Um, she or what I guess was her essentially. In the dream, I was in some sort of, I almost want to say it was like a warehouse, but also like a restaurant environment, but it was like after hours, right? So it was like late at night from what I perceive. But it was like maybe we had been closed for a little bit, but maybe I was there cleaning.
Right.
But I think that I was the only one there at this point from what I remember. And at some point, like I had this awareness that there were two of my dogs. Like specifically, it was like, oh, my dogs are here, but they weren't like there in the space. And
Hmm.
then at some point, this wild dog, like it was crazy. It came in and I had to like keep it, like I basically had my hand on it and trying to like keep it back because it was going crazy, like it wanted to attack me. And um yeah, I mean, I guess that was the premise of it. And I knew in my mind, I was like, oh, my dogs are close. So I'm not too worried about this. And I like my dogs had ended up like being present there, like they kind of just like appeared and the dogs just sat there. They didn't do anything. They didn't really protect me. They were just there. And I was like, okay. So then I kind of still had to keep this dog at bay. And then eventually that dog chilled. And then it kind of basically dissolved and went somewhere else. Like I think it went like from what I remember, there was like another building like across the street, but it was like maybe some people's apartments. And I know there was a window open. So it was like this knowing, like, oh, the dog went in there. They didn't close the window. And so now it's in there or something like that. So I didn't really think much about it until literally today as we're talking and as I was making notes. And I was like, oh, there was a foreign dog in my dream. So I wonder if it was Hecate. I don't think it was black, though. I think it was like a dark brown. But I mean, like, who cares? I mean, I
Right.
think that's close enough where there's like a foreign dog.
Yeah.
And I tend to have dog dreams, and it was interesting too. Like I said, my dog dreams, I feel like they're more connected to the Egyptian energy that I connect with. And so I think that whole dynamic was like just interesting, where it's like, oh, this foreign dog came in and my dogs are here, but they're like, I'm not going to attack it. Like, it's fine. You deal with that on your own. And then it just like
This
eventually,
is so exciting because the first thing I think about right away is the triple goddess
oh, yeah, that's true. Because there were three.
and how the dogs were accepting of this being, this other creature, this other dog, and how it was almost like something like a fear in a way that you had to face.
Yeah,
And like, so just that aspect alone is very Hecate and very protective. In sometimes being protective is kind of forcing you to do the hard thing.
very true.
And I think that that is absolutely represented in that dream space. And well, I can't say absolutely because it's your dream, not mine, but
I think that's
it
all right.
feels very much like that. And then when after everything calmed down because you stayed, you faced it, then it the fear dissipated, the animal calmed down and left. And it almost feels just super symbolic of just the aspect of the protection, the facing your fears, the aspect of the darkness, the nighttime, the unknown, even not knowing the source of the animal in itself, like that unknown. I don't know. I'm getting pretty
No,
strong
it definitely
Hecate
feels,
energy from that dream.
especially because like my dog dreams started off incredibly scary. And like, I mean, they started off basically as hellhounds. Like
Hmm.
it started off that, and then it evolved into more of that protection type energy, like throughout my dreams. And, but still sometimes like they don't show up as much. And they always, I love them now in my dreams because they kind of look like Doberman Pinschers. And I just love that breed.
And
Um,
they are black dogs.
Right, yeah, and they look like kind of like Anubis actually.
Hmm.
And so, but it's like even now they don't show up as often, but when they do, there's still like a little bit of fear, like a feeling of fear,
Right.
in those dreams. So it makes a lot of sense. Like I feel like the feeling of fear was a little bit higher in this dream than it has been since like I've moved through all of that, that series of dreams that were coming through with the dogs. And so that really makes sense too, especially as it was like a foreign dog. And it was like, but then
Hmm.
my dogs are like, no, we're good. Like she's cool. So
Hmm.
I'm like, okay.
Like they know something you don't know yet.
Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting.
I
And then
love that.
the
I
other
think
two
that's a
nights I didn't
beautiful
really,
example.
yeah, I didn't really have any other dreams. I mean, I guess this morning I did have some dreams of like an ex-lover that I've never like I feel like he's never come in my dreams. And it was like my first love. So that's kind of curious. Um But I don't know if that was connected to Hecate, aside from it being like a past type situation. So yeah,
Right.
that was my experience with that.
I love that. I think that's such a good example of like we purposely were calling in Hecate and this is how she showed up.
Yeah. What about you? So I'm like so excited to hear.
So this was not last night, it was the night before. I had decided to call in Hecate and so what I did was I took this bag, this little bag, and I put inside her my key. I wanted to call in Hecate by using correspondences, of course, the key. This silver sheen obsidian moon, which I don't know if you can see the silver sheen.
No, it's kind of hard. Oh, yeah. I see a little bit. Yeah. Ooh, pretty.
There it is. Boop, boop.
Yeah.
Because of the moon association and nighttime and dark. And then, of course, obsidian is a protective stone. And then my High Priestess card from the Deleted Worlds deck that I use.
Mhm.
And funny enough, like the name of the card in the deck is the Lifting Veil, which I think is very it feels very Hecate because she's lifting the veil for you to see the unknown.
Yeah.
And it's just it's beautiful. But so I put that under my pillow in the bag, everything under my pillow. And I did a nighttime meditation where I essentially, as I was falling asleep, I was saying in my head, I'd like to call in Hecate to enter the dream space. And the dream I had was very, very brief. It essentially was a being that was just an eye and the eye had flames coming off of it going upwards, obviously. And then below was a space and then a body, just about from here to like waist. And it was like white robe, but the way the robe was made, it was almost like silky and it looked like ribbon, like it was pieced together by ribbon. So it had this very almost like when you think of like a mummy, like that type of
Yeah.
like dressing. But it was this beautiful, like bone white, silky robe, but no neck. The eye was hovering above it, like it was one being, but it was just hovering above it, and the flames were its normal orange tone with bright, or I not bright, but dark blues and dark purples intertwined as well. And then everything else was void. Everything was void. And I kind of was just because it was first person, so I was staring directly at this being. And for a little bit, we were just sitting with each other. And I was just staring into the eye of this being, observing, looking around. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel like uncomfortable. I did feel warmth radiating off of her, but you know, she's a flame, so
Yeah.
I I'm sure that played a huge role in it, but I did feel safe and protected. And there was telepathic communication between the two of us. Um, there was telepathic communication through feeling. And so, like that protective, that safeness, the warmth, and then just kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It just felt otherworldly. And then there was also verbal communication telepathically. So I don't remember much. It felt like a language I couldn't understand. The only thing I could understand was, I'm here. And that was the entirety of the dream. That was it. And I just felt like that was such a like profound encounter. And I did do a little drawing just to kind of give an idea of what she kind of looked like. I know that my camera is like it blurs, so I don't know if it's going to show up. I might just have to like send a photo.
Yeah, totally send a photo. Oh my goodness, Alexis. As soon as you said the I, and then okay, so you said the I, but then you went into like, okay, there's a separation in the body. I was like, this is you. Like, this is like you were saying, the higher, like your higher self
Hmm.
representation or merge with the Hecate archetype, like that version
Yeah.
of you. Like, that's that.
Yeah.
And like, even though there was like, it's hard to kind of translate the words that were exchanged, like the energy is so felt and it's so profound. And
Yeah.
just for the fact that the only thing that has come through as far as words and being able to share it here is I'm here is like even more profound.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, yeah, that's what I have. That's that's all I have. I'm like, wow, that literally was you. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I think what I'm getting to is just like, okay, so what do you want to do with that? Like, where do you want to go from here? Like, it's
Right.
actually waiting on you. You is waiting on the directive to
Yeah. I
say,
and I completely agree with that because I there's a couple of things that I have done in my witchcraft as of recently this year that I have been wanting to do and just haven't been. So I practice solitarily most of the time and have most of my existence. I have been a solitary witch. I don't commune usually. But I've gotten into community within the last 6 months. I've allowed myself to become more and more connected with community.
mhm,
And that's always something that I was not comfortable with and didn't really want to embark on. And I would say I feel a little similarly with deity work. Like I have never really felt like really, it didn't feel organic for me to work with deities.
Mhm.
But as I'm understanding myself in my existence more, I'm understanding what deity work would look like for me, and that it really, the reason I felt disconnected from it was because I was looking at it from other people's perspectives of their craft and how they work with deities. So, since this is kind of coming up more organically in my life now, I'm really feeling a connection to working with her. And another thing that comes to mind too is that I started doing in the community I'm in, I started doing a lunar cycle working with the dream space, working with your dreams based on the lunar cycle. So the first week, we are essentially our what we needed to do was to figure out our intention and put it into practice. However you want to do it. You pick your intention, and for that week you repeat it before bed. You talk it into your tea before bed, write about it, whatever it may be, burn it. That was the first week of working with the new moon and setting your intention for what you want in the dream space. And for me, my intention that I chose was to enhance my witchcraft through dreaming. And so, being that Hecate is the goddess of witchcraft, the goddess of the liminal, the goddess of magic, it makes so much sense that she would show herself. And when I suggested this to Urania, it just popped up in my head.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't, because we were supposed to do a different one, and I just kind of episode, and I just kind of wasn't feeling the vibe for that right at this moment. And so I was like, oh, why don't we why don't we do an episode on like another dream deity? Why don't we do Hecate? And like the dream magic book that I had read recently lists deities to work with in the dream space, and she wasn't even listed as one of the deities to work with.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know, it just came through to me. So I just think that this is all like I'm very much discovering more about this as we talk about it and dive into it. But I probably am going to start incorporating that into my dreaming and whatnot as we go on.
Wow. I mean, I didn't know that, like, as far as like how this came about, like, I didn't know what was going on as far as like your community practice and stuff. And that just really makes me so excited. And also, I think I've said this before, and I feel that you kind of have, not to say one thing is better than the other, but I think that you kind of have a leg up in the sense of like just your spiritual sovereignty and personal power in the in the sense of like, oh, I generally connect with my higher self. Like I don't have like this strong desire to connect with the deity or work in community. And I think that that's a very interesting, and I wouldn't say uncommon, like I don't know if uncommon is the right word, um, but like initiation into it, because I feel like a lot of people lean on outside help, you know? And so it's really good that you started out with yourself first. And I think what's helping you to open up more to working with deities is that, like, when you express it, it was initially at the beginning of this chat was like, I want to connect with my higher self in the aspect of Hecate or in reflection of Hecate or however you worded it. And that's literally what happened. And I think that a lot of people, it's hard for people to get to that state of awareness where it's like, again, like I said this already, where these deities are all aspects of us, right? They're archetypes. This is us having fun and playing. And yes, like
Mhm.
I will say, some of these beings are definitely their own energy and entity, and like fun, amazing, crazy, miraculous things happen, like the fun thing that happened with the alarm system in your place. Or I've had experiences with green Tara where I'm just like green Tara for me is one of those deities that I'm like, no, she's an actual thing. Like the
Mhm.
synchronicities, the feelings, how the magical things that have happened when I call upon her, like in those moments, like it's like there's no denying it, right? So it's really interesting how like you think about, oh, okay, this is me playing a role or having fun with different archetypes, different like roles and personas. But then
Yep.
also as we collectively put energy into these like entities, they literally become like a being of their own, right? So it's kind of a mixture. But when we connect with them on an individual basis, we're connecting with our own reflection filtered through that, right? Because they're going to show us, like, they're going to show themselves to us in the way that is most comfortable and aligned with us. And that can evolve over
Absolutely.
time. So
Oh, for
I think that's
sure.
really exciting. I think that is like synchronistic and also validates what you've been doing with your community and just like the path that you're on. And so that's so exciting. And like it happens in the waking space, like as it happened, as we're talking here, and it happens in the dream space. And it's interesting to just like see all of that coexisting or existing simultaneously, which is the same thing. Um, and being able to reflect on that and grow and like integrate that into your everyday life, I think is really,
Absolutely. And I think it really calls on divine timing too, like when you're ready for something, whether it's conscious, subconscious, unconscious, when you're ready for something, it'll show up.
yeah,
And so there are aspects where, I may not have been ready to incorporate deity work into my practice. And because I wasn't ready, it didn't feel comfortable, didn't feel right, it didn't feel organic, it didn't feel timely. But now things are aligning, and these synchronicities that have been showing themselves for months on end are starting to actually come into a full picture, kind of like we talked about what Hecate does, leaving the breadcrumbs. And eventually you get to the full picture and understanding.
yeah,
So I'm really excited to embark on this journey and see what comes through. And that being said, I think this is a good opportunity to talk about how she might show up in the dream space for you. Um, so I don't know if you want to touch on that or if you want
yeah.
me to go ahead and touch on that,
Go ahead.
whatever.
Yeah, you go for it.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to Hecate showing up in your dream space, she can, of course, come through with the symbolism of keys. And this can show up in a variety of ways. I mean, you could fall asleep and you're just looking at a giant key in the void. It can be a key unlocking a door, unlocking a gate. It could be a key locking a door or locking a gate. It could be your car keys. It could be your house keys. So, with that being said, pay attention to how you feel around about the keys, what the keys are doing, if they're being put to use, if they're not being put to use. Mark all these things down because it's a lesson to be pulled into the consciousness. And of course, paths and crossroads. If you're dreaming of a crossroad, that could be a sign that Hecate is showing up in your dream space to help guide you through the next direction in your life or to figure out what you need to be honing in on right now. It could be something as on the nose as three paths: your past, your present, and your future, and kind of the possibly a forward push into what direction you may need to understand more, learn more about, put more energy and focus into in one way or the next. As we mentioned before, a dog, having any dog show up really could be a representation of Hecate and that aspect of protection and guidance. I mean, especially if the dog itself is having you follow it or it's standing as a protector for you. Because Urania, if I remember correctly, don't you haven't you had and shared a dream previously where there was a dog that had, whether you felt it intuitively or it somehow a indicated to you that it wanted you to follow it, like I feel like I'm
I think it was like following me. One of the dreams I'm thinking about is it was following me. And but it was still in this guiding way where it was like I saw it watching me. as I'm walking down this alley of like a parking lot alley. And then like it came out and it was closer to me and I like finally I stopped and I acknowledged it. And I think there was like some sort of like antagonist type energy, like something that wanted to fight me or harm me. And it was like more dogs appeared and they were like protecting me and like showing me how to like fight that or something like that. So yeah, I think that's like that's what's coming to mind. I could have had another one where it was like guiding me specifically.
Absolutely. And, when it comes to other symbols that might show up, you could simply feel an ambivalent. Is that the word I'm looking for? Just like a presence watching you, a presence
Yep.
that
That.
may not be connected to you, like, that that isn't yourself, just there watching you, just being there to protect you, to see you in your dream space, and just be present with you. You could also be around a cauldron or a fire. You could, like I mentioned before, it could be a void where you see a fire kind of guiding your path forward, or, whatever manifestation of Hecate herself could show up in the dream space, because I'm sure everybody has a different perspective and idea of how she looks and feels and whatnot. So that's what I have for how she might show up in the dream space.
Yeah, so I would also add to that torches and even like when you said something about like the like crossing the crossroads. I'm thinking about like an elevator even. Like you can kind of it doesn't have to be like what you would expect. Because I feel like I
Right.
had in the past 3 nights, or maybe that same night, because I had a bunch of dreams when I had that dog dream. But I'm thinking about even the elevator where it's like it's taking you from one floor, or it's like kind of that like guide, or it's like that threshold of like connecting to like either the upper, like the higher, the heavens, the upper world,
Mm-hmm.
lower world. So that's something that can come through. But I mean, pretty much everything that you shared was spot on and what I have noted here. Also, the moon can, of course, be a
Yep.
correspondence. And going through those different phases and even the different seasons, because we didn't touch on this, but in the mythology of Hecate, she helped Demeter find Persephone when Persephone was in the underworld. And to me, I feel that triple goddess energy there, where I feel like going into the underworld, like if Hecate is more of like that present energy, going into the underworld, like going into like maybe the past or the darker elements of yourself and going to find those aspects of you and merging that with like you could say the light, the known, which is that
Mm,
Demeter energy. It represents that triple goddess correspondence, as well as just that transformation and that integration and going through the different seasons, as Persephone and Demeter are both associated with the seasons.
absolutely.
So I see that correspondence there and showing up in dreams as well. But yeah, you pretty much touched on everything that I noted as far as dream symbols. So, in that regard, was there anything else that we didn't touch on Hecate related?
Not that I can think of at the moment. But if you guys have anything more you'd like to add about Hecate, your experiences, how you work with her, how you work with her in the dream space, feel free to leave comments below, or you can email us personally at the Innerverse Podcast at gmail.com. And we'd love to hear how you have your relationship with her, and what your experiences are.
Absolutely. So thank you everyone for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed this. Please again share your comments and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and subscribe on YouTube. Until then, sweet dreams.
Sweet dreams.